Who's never put be authentic, just be yourself into an influencer brief? None of you. Okay. So in an environment where trust seems to be everything, the industry has its biggest problem. Influencer marketing works a bit like a black market. Very little regulation, few rules, there is no transparent pricing list. They will never be. Just a bunch of people optimizing for themselves. Brands, creators, agencies, trying to get the best deal for them. In a way, that's authentic, right? Some people want to make money, others want to save money. This has consequences, right? It's getting more difficult to stand out in influencer marketing. Prices are rising, competition is aggressive. To make it work, you need a bit of luck, right? You need to do it really right. Of course, people in the UK marketers know this. Every second marketer here spends more money on paid amplification. Organic only is working, but not as good as it used to be. 8 out of 10 people want to spend more budget on influencers. People believe in this channel, right? They see the potential. Ironically, 43% can't really prove that all of this is worth it. So, in an environment where trust is key, authenticity is so important to stand out, economic realities can hit you quite hard. Then something like this comes along. I know you've seen this, right? The pressure kicks in. Your boss is telling you to do more with less. Your boss's boss, she's giving you a call. Why aren't we in the news? What are you waiting for? Let's go all in. Fiona here next to me. She's been in the industry for 10 years. She knows what authenticity looks like when it needs to perform. Okay, Fiona.
Cool. Then just like double check. Cool. So yeah, what does authenticity actually mean? I guess that is the million-dollar question. And I would say authenticity isn't an instruction, it is actually an outcome. And I would say you can probably break it down in 5 underlying properties. So I would say, number 1, expertise, which is built over months of real use. So let's say you send an influencer the product, they actually have 6 months to try out, and therefore it actually feels, the campaign would feel a little bit more authentic. Then the connectedness is number 2, so that's the bond of the influencer with their audience. Number 3, originality. So that is basically the definition of them being able to use their natural tone of voice and not actually using any mandated scripts. Transparency, I think that is very much self-explanatory, but you would hope that they declare their real experience if it is an ad. And then lastly, integrity. So that is basically the passion that should predate any deal. And I would say an influencer doesn't have to have all 5 of them, although I would argue probably transparency is helpful. But I would say they should definitely have one strength in one of them that could then maybe offset some of the gaps that are potentially visible. But again, like authenticity isn't an instruction, so by you just including it in the brief saying, be authentic, it doesn't actually help that talent because it's a mixture of the casting, the product fit, but also giving the creator, the freedom of what they can actually produce. I guess that's pretty easy now. We have the definition on paper. It's like cool authenticity, but also from my point of view. So I work within influencer marketing. I'm still very much active with contracting talents, and my biggest challenge on a daily basis is how do I find new talents? How do I find new talents that fit the brand, that reach new niches, and that's super time-consuming. At the same time, I have pressure from my senior leadership team saying, why can you not spend more budget? And I'm like, well, it's really hard to find those talents. And I think what then happens is that you actually sometimes forget if you contract an influencer and ask yourself, is that actually a good fit? Was that actually really good? So I think over the last 10 years, I've definitely made some mistakes, and that's good. Everyone makes mistakes and you just need to draw some learnings. But I think I've created a little bit of an authenticity matrix, which could be used like as a little bit of a checklist before making a decision, and might be helpful as well as a reminder of like, keep this in the back of your head and actually ask yourself, is the creator that you're currently working with the most authentic? Does that fit? So let's start off with the first one, which is, bottom left, which is the worst case scenario. So I say that that's the cold out talent. So what happens is the talent doesn't really, the product fit isn't there, doesn't really like the product, maybe hasn't even like tried out the product, just has a super scripted tone, is reading off the brief, and you know what happens is the audience can tell, they call it out, there's an active distrust, and actually what could happen as well is that maybe, you know, as influencer marketeers, we take screenshots, share it with each other and say, hey, actually this is a really bad example of influencer marketing, let's not do it. And I think that happens when there's a low sincerity, but also like a low credibility. Then the next one, I think they're pretty interesting, because I would say majority of the campaigns are definitely in this kind of middle ground, because on paper they seem fine, but actually there's probably a little bit of like a high chance of failure. So like number one is like the rented expertise. So on paper, the talent is super credible, but you know, it feels quite scripted because maybe the brand really like hammered in the brief, and it reads as a paid slot, but actually not a recommendation. And what happens is, because the talent itself is credible, the audience will engage. They will kind of accept it, but they will actually not trust it or not convert. So I think that works on paper, but there's definitely room for improvement. And it's the same with the likable and unconvincing one, where this is an example where the influencer has real warmth, has the connection with the audience, but I think it's in the wrong category. So like, let's say I work for Free Soul supplement brand. Let's say we work with a really likable fashion influencer who has never mentioned supplements before. I think the audience can tell. And what happens is, because the talent is likable, the audience will engage. They will say, yeah, that's cool, but actually they will not trust it or will not buy it because it's not a recommendation. And then lastly, I guess that's where we all want to be, is like the earned trust on the top right. So I guess that's the jackpot where we all should be, which is the really credible talent with a genuine voice who maybe had the chance to use the product 6 months beforehand, and that converts and that retains. But yeah, easier said than done. I think everyone has to go through their learnings and trials, but maybe like a good to keep in the back of your head. And then, yeah, I guess just in general, 2 lines to retire from every single brief. I think that is still pretty common. I think we just need to cut, keep authentic, make it feel genuine. And I definitely in the past had those lines in my briefs as well. But I think we also need to remind ourselves that 6 years ago, influencer marketing was not new anymore, but it might have been a little bit more of a novelty, and there was less spend behind the channel. So like what Eugen just said, you know, we all know Unilever wants to pivot their strategy. There's more spend inflation, and I think 6 years ago we might have gotten away with a inauthentic campaign. But I think the audience, the customer knows how influencer marketing works. It's nothing new anymore. I think there's a lot of great TikTok creators as well who show behind the scenes. They kind of like, everyone knows how to make a deal, etc. So I think that's what we have to keep in mind. Then, yeah, just like 2 examples. I think what's also really important to remember is authenticity is subjective. So just because I find one influencer authentic doesn't mean that you find that person authentic. And at the same time, like, I guess Current Body's authenticity definition is very different to the one from Rimmel. But I think Current Body, what they're doing well is, I know we all know they're pushing promo codes, they have track links, they probably want to grow their new customer base. I've definitely fallen for that as well from my own profession. I've bought in, but I think all of the content looks very different. So like the Momfluencer is showcasing the usage of LED mask, very different to, let's say, your CEO female agency, or like even founder. So very different. And yeah, same with the Rimmel one. I guess the beauty talent, it looks like, you know, it's like declared as a paid ad, but it looks like as if she has used the products before. She's just casually sitting, drinking her coffee, touching up her makeup. But yeah, again, I think as a marketer, I hate this word saying you have to wear 2 different hats. I hate it, but I guess we do, because you have to like remember you have a definition of authenticity, but then what is the definition of the brand for authenticity? And then lastly, before I hand over again to Eugen, is so what can we do to make it authentic? And to be honest, like you probably look at this and think, Fiona, cool, I've read this like a million times, and to be honest, so do I. So I think we need to let creators do their job. We need to trust them that they know their audience, and we need to trust them in terms of that they know what works best. Keep the briefing short and never provide a script. However, I think, yes, we all know that on paper, but actually we don't do this enough. And just as an example, I've just recently spoken to a talent agency founder who actually used to be on brand side, and we were just speaking about the renegotiation of a new contract. And he said, you know, why don't you just tell me what are your expectations, what are your KPIs, because we want to make sure that this campaign is successful. So I think we need to just speak a lot more with the talent agents, because they just want to be successful just as much as the brand wants to. And I think we sometimes forget that because we're all keyboard warriors. I mean, I am as well, and we're just emailing back and forth. But actually, you know, there's a human being, and they want to do as well as the brand does, and I think it's just finding a compromise. So more of a reminder. But yeah, I hand over back to Eugen.
Oh, thank you, Fiona. So I think we all understood the marketing and the brand perspective. Makes sense, right? We talk as marketers, we talk for brands, but there is one segment, the users. What do they actually want? Do you think they like authentic content? In a way, we all assume, and there is data on this, right? So I brought some data from UK audiences, and honestly, this is not surprising at all, right? 78% follow people because of their authenticity. Yes, we know this. But they unfollow if there is too much promotion or if they lose trust. That's super obvious. This I find super interesting. This is ASA data from the UK. Users expect influencers to also fully disclose what is advertising, right? And they clearly say that they don't want to zoom in to understand if this is advertising, this is promotion, right? They want to see right away. And that's also a form of authenticity from a creator and from a brand side. And this is something that brands can kind of control, to disclose ads the right way. Not only because it's legal, but also because it's the fair thing for the users. This is what they expect. So, yeah, 78% because content aligns with their values. I think this is just part of the authenticity process. So as marketers, right, as Fiona pointed out, authenticity doesn't start with the briefing. It starts much earlier in the process. When you want to cast, when you want to discover creators, you need to make sure that these people align with your values, with what the product stands for, the founders, the brand, right? Just a few tips and items for you to take away from today, that authenticity doesn't start with your briefing. You can't tell somebody to be authentic, but you need to select and choose the right creators who are authentic to what you stand for. Everybody, have a good show.
Cool.
We have time for questions, by the way.
If anyone has. Cool.
Cool. Thank you.
Other than that, thank you.